Hi everyone, I'm Jade and this is my very first vlog for the Gentle Grimoire. So firstly, I would just like to apologise for the background. I am converting my upstairs spare room into a cosy reading space and vlogging space, but at the moment it's still got monkeys on from when it was my son's bedroom, so it's going to be a little bit of a while till I can get it up there. But I wanted to get this video up as soon as possible because this is a vlog discussion of all of the books that I read in January 2026 and my ratings for them. Mini reviews, sort of just an informal chat about each book. And I would just like to clarify that obviously my rating scale is going to be very different to yours. I basically rate based on the vibes and how I felt about it in the moment and how I think I'll remember it sort of in the future. So if I rate something low, there's a good chance you might even like it. So please don't take my ratings as gospel. Anyway, let's get into it. Thrown in the Dark by A.K. Caggiano. Sorry about the pronunciation issues. I rated this a solid 4 stars because basically this book was like if you mix like the Princess Bride vibes with a really random Dungeons and Dragons tabletop roleplay game with the most demented game master out there. So I thought it was really funny. Emma and Damien were really funny characters. The dialogue was witty, the writing was really engaging, and I really enjoyed this book. My second book of January was the fantastic Heated Rivalry by Rachel Reed, and I had never heard of this book series until I saw the TV show advertised. I actually saw a few sort of clips, memes based on the TV show, and I saw some of the dialogue, and I was like, oh god, I need to read these books before I watch the TV show. So I went and read 3 of the books, the 3 that correspond to Shane and Ilya's story. So Heated Rivalry obviously being the first one that I read, and I rated it a solid 4 stars again because I just thought this book was great. I loved the banter, I loved the spice, I loved the characters. Ilya is forever going to be like one of my favourite book characters in the entire world. Shane, also very enjoyable, but Ilya was, I'm just all about Ilya Rozanov. And I absolutely loved it. And I did go on to watch the TV show, and at some point I plan on doing a post about the differences between the TV show and the book, parts that I thought worked better in the book, parts that I thought worked better in the TV show. Yes, I am talking about that nightclub scene. And yeah, I just really enjoyed it. So then I went on to read Role Models because I was recommended to read this one before I read The Long Game. Role Models is not based on Shane and Ilya, but Ilya does play a very prominent part in the story. This is actually Harris and Troy's story, and it was a little bit less spicy, a little bit less hot than the first book. It was much more of a gentle kind of friends to lovers, redemption arc kind of story. I absolutely loved Harris and his golden retriever energy, and I loved Troy and his character development throughout the story. And of course I did love Ilya in this book as well. And so I rated it again a very solid 4 stars. I then left the Heated Rivalry Game Changer series behind for a little while because I was recommended that I absolutely had to read Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross, and I am so glad I did because this was actually my very first 5-star rating of the year. Divine Rivals was just absolutely amazing for me. I absolutely loved the setting. I kind of read it as kind of a New York in the 1920s, the reporters going out to report on the war, the sort of issue of propaganda in war and how it plays a part. Roman and Iris's rivals to friends to lovers arc was just the most beautiful thing in the world. And while I did think it moved quite fast, the romance, when it actually hit the romantic point, it does fit in with this world because it very much reminds me of, for example, my nana and grandfather meeting during the war and getting married very quickly. And so I kind of, it was believable. It was sort of insta love that worked in a way. And I just loved the world building in this story, the Decker and Enver gods history, And I was really looking forward to reading the second one because I knew it kind of got into that a little bit more. Continuity error, sorry. So immediately after reading Divine Rivals, I obviously picked up the second one, Ruthless Vows. And unfortunately, Ruthless Vows fell short for me. And it was only a 3-star rating. Because while the book had its great parts, like diving more into the mythology lore, more into the history of the gods, the first half of the book basically read like a rehash of Divine Rivals due to a thing that happens at the end of Divine Rivals, which is a trope that I absolutely hate. So I was quite upset that it leaned into that. And while the second half was great, I just really missed that Iris and Roman being together, banter. So I unfortunately didn't rate this book as well. But I will definitely reread just because I want to be able to reread Divine Rivals, and then I'll know that I want to complete the story. So it will be one that I reread, but unfortunately it won't be one which I recommend. Well, I guess I will recommend it because I love Divine Rivals and you need Ruthless Vows to finish the story, but it's a tricky one, isn't it, when a sequel is so bad in comparison to the first book, and with it only being a duology as well, it's not even got a third book to redeem it, so I'm really iffy with it, but it is only a 3-star rating, I'm afraid. So after Ruthless Vows, I did actually go on to finish the Game Changers series, well, to finish the ones concerning Ilya and Shane, and I read The Long Game. And unfortunately, it was yet another one that fell short compared to the first one in the series. I think for Ilya and Shane, what really worked for me was the bite that their story had, the rivalry, the banter. And while some of it was there in The Long Game, it was not as intense. And it was very soft and very gentle, lots of romantic moments. And I love that for them. They're very happy. But it just didn't have the same delivery to me as Heated Rivalry. And so, unfortunately, this was only maybe a 3.5 star rated book. I was very sad to see the end of Ilya and Shane. I'm very happy to hear that Rachel Reed is intending to write another Shane and Ilya based story. So I am hoping for some very nice domesticity in that one. But yeah, shout out to the car ride part of this book where Shane makes a long car ride with a special present inside him. Yeah, that was a great scene. Okay, sorry, I've just had to reposition myself because I've just had to go sort the baby out again. So once again, really sorry for any wonky cuts. But yeah, at least now you get to see my Death by TBR t-shirt that I am absolutely loving at the moment. Rest in pages. Okay, so it is now time to discuss my favourite book that I read this month. It might be one of my favourites by the end of the year. I wouldn't be surprised if it remains one of the top books I read in 2026, even though it was one of the first books I read in 2026, without saying this book is a 5-star rating, and that book is The Vatra Witch by G.V. Hext. And if you haven't heard of this, you need to go out and read it. I received it as an advance review copy through Book Sirens, and it was absolutely fantastic. It was, I don't know what I was expecting. I was expecting, the typical romantasy. And while it does follow a lot of the typical romantasy tropes, it does it so well. The world building is there. The characters are amazing. If you are looking for another Rhysand, you want to read this book because Vaso delivers. If you are looking for a strong female character with insecurities, think maybe Violet Sorrengail, you are looking at Seraphina. She is amazing. The book was amazing. The story was amazing. The way it ended was distressing. And I am not ready to have to wait for the next book in this series. Please go and check that out if you are a romantasy fan, because it will deliver. It releases on February 14th, so get your pre-orders in now, please. I'm so sorry, this baby absolutely hates being put down and not being held. She's just going to be a little helper in this video. I'm very sorry. So, the next book that I read is The Baby Dragon Bookshop by A.T. Qureshi, and I did really enjoy this book. I rated it 4 stars at the time. In hindsight, I'd probably maybe take half a star off and rate it 3.5 stars. But obviously we'll stick to 4 stars because that is what I rated it in my official at the moment rating. I did enjoy the characters in this book. Emmy and Luke were a really nice couple. I do like the rivals to lovers. I think Luke was a great character. He just needed more development. Emmy had development. And I did like the character, though she did make some questionable choices in the past. It is the 3rd book in a series of standalones, and I haven't read the first 2. I will definitely be going back to read the first 2, and I am mega uber excited for the spin-off romantasy series about illegal dragon racing in this same universe using one of the side characters, Ginny. I am so excited to read that, so I will definitely be reading it on release. I have actually requested an advanced review copy on NetGalley, but given that I'm still building up my reader base and don't have the engagement I really want yet, I'll be very surprised if I'm accepted for it. If I am, great, happy birthday to me. It's not my birthday till May, but let's just pretend it is whatever day that I am accepted for that, if I am accepted for it. Anyway, moving on. Your Soul Mail is attached by Joan F. Smith, and this book got 3.5 stars from me. It was a solid read. It had me asking existential questions. The characters were great, the plot was great. I've heard it compared to a book called The Measure. I haven't read that yet, but I will be going on to read it because I really enjoyed this book and would probably enjoy that one as well. I did have one criticism with this story, which is just that the book was just too wordy. It probably could have lost 50 to 100 pages of it and not lost any of its substance. And unfortunately, that made the pacing a little bit iffy in places, and so I did drop 1.5 stars for that. So it is 3.5 stars, and this book is actually released in April, and would recommend you go out and read it if you like existential questions, books about soulmates, books about questioning your life, things like that. Yeah, definitely would recommend reading it. How to Kill a Guy in 10 Dates by Shaylee Thompson was a solid 4-star read for me. This is what happens when a slasher and a rom-com get together and they make really irresponsible decisions. The book was fantastic. I loved the characters. It was so funny in places, a bit gory, a bit of horror, a bit scary. I enjoyed it. It was just a really fun, thrillery romp, and it was just really fun. To start with, I didn't think I was going to get into it. The first sort of couple of chapters had me thinking, oh god, is this going to be a DNF? It absolutely was not a DNF, and then I devoured the rest of it in like a day. I really enjoyed the story when it got going and the mystery started, and I did kind of expect the twist towards the end, but I just loved the delivery of it. It was really well done. The mystery had me thinking, oh, who's been missing, who's in each scene, who's got an alibi. It had me analysing every single scene by scene, and yeah, I just really enjoyed it. Just for the Season by Rachel Griffiths was an enjoyable Regency romp story. It got 3.5 stars from me because even now, a couple of weeks after reading, I'm starting to forget what the characters were called or what happened in the book. I just know that it was good times when I read it. I enjoyed it. There were some spicy scenes. It was like Bridgerton, but a little bit lighter, a little bit funnier. Charlotte was a nice independent woman. Wolfgang was a very enjoyable romantic hero. I loved reading his point of view, a lot more than I liked Charlotte's, to be honest. And I just really liked the way this book kind of materialised and kind of happened, the plot happened. And it was a good time. It was a good time. That's all I can say. Good time. Yeah, if you need your Bridgerton fix in July, maybe pick up just for the season. Love Another Side Effects by Deirdre Duncan, 3.5 stars. Recommended for fans of Grey's Anatomy, ER, other medical dramas. There was a lot of medical references in there that fans of those series would recognise. The characters were great. They had depth, they had trauma, they had history. And I massively enjoyed a romance book where the characters had their trauma, but it's still a really light-hearted romance book as well. Friends to lovers isn't always my favourite trope. Sometimes I find it a little bit too soft, a little bit too gentle, and the will they won't be of this entire book kind of went on for a little bit too long for me. But the resolution when it did happen, I did enjoy. I would definitely recommend this book for romance readers or especially fans of like Grey's Anatomy. I'm a huge fan of Grey's Anatomy and I just loved reading the references. I loved the little throwbacks to that. And the fact that it is medically correct as well, because the writer herself is a OBGYN, is always super helpful as well. You don't have to suspend disbelief for medical scenes and things like that. Not that there's a lot of medical scenes in this book, but when they're referencing things like hysterectomies and things like that, it is nice to know that the information is correct, I guess. So yeah, this book is released in April. Okay, so the next one was a 5-star read, and that is A Song for Lost Things by Michael Ashwood. And my goodness, this book really just took me by surprise. It had a very kind of fantasy, escapist feel. The writing was almost sort of the Princess Bride-esque. It took you into the world, and the world building was absolutely phenomenal. The way it throws you in and you don't understand what's happening for a few chapters, but your knowledge kind of builds up throughout the book, and there was never any sort of exposition or any sort of info dumping on you, and I absolutely think that is always the sign of a fantastic writer. This book was beautiful. It was beautiful, it was light, but at the same time it had its depth. The characters were great, especially Valentine and Lyric, their little romance throughout this book. It doesn't take any sort of precedence over the story, but it's there and it's subtle and it's beautiful. This book is absolutely well recommended for anyone looking for a really good escapist fantasy, and it's something that's just very readable. It really is very readable. 5 stars, definitely recommended. Sorry, I'm doing a lot of things with my hands. I'm so sorry. I'm not used to speaking on camera. I will get a lot more confident, I think. I'm doing it again. I'm sorry. So the next book was another 5-star read, which meant I had 2 5 stars in a row, which is quite rare for me. And that was Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinningham. And I picked this up because I saw someone discussing it in a thread. And I wanted something that wasn't romance. I'm trying to kind of widen my horizons a little bit, but this also kept very much in vibe with me because I have spent a good 2/3 of my life playing online mass multiplayer online RPG games, Final Fantasy crew, World of Warcraft crew, you know, that kind of thing. I have knowledge of tabletop role plays, I've played single player role players, so a lot of the references sort of hit with me. I absolutely loved the references to loot boxes, the achievements. The humour in this book was absolutely fantastic, and I am absolutely going to be reading the rest of these books sort of in between darker, heavier reads, just to give me a little bit of lightness. This book was funny, but it also had some moral questions in it, which had me asking a lot of things, you know, about morality, hence the moral questions. I am so bad at this, I'm so sorry. But I did really, really enjoy this book. It was so funny, and I was cracking up and reading quotes to my husband. Bearing in mind, my husband is not a gamer, so he had absolutely no idea what I was laughing about, but he listened to me, so thank you, Tom. Thank you for listening to me. Okay, so unfortunately, the worst book that I read this month was the last book that I read this month, and that one is The Cuffing Game by Lila Lee. Now, I could have expected this coming because the last book that I read by Lila Lee received a 2 out of 5 rating on my last blog, and that was Flip the Script. So The Cuffing Game, I actually enjoyed a little bit more than Flip the Script. I would give it a 2.5 rating. I finished it last night. It was just flat for me in areas. The characters had very little development. The dialogue felt stuffy and unrealistic, and while I enjoyed aspects of this book, I did quite enjoy aspects of this book, it just didn't hit for me. And I think that might be something to do with Lila Lee's writing more than the plot. This book, the one problem I had with Flip the Script is that there was a lot of info dumping at the start. This book didn't have this, but it just didn't hit anything for me. It didn't hit anywhere. So I think this will be the last Lila Lee book that I read, and that's okay. If you're looking for a really light teen, young adult romance novel, this might be one for you. It just wasn't my thing. So there it is, everything that I read in January of 2026. Have you read any of these books? Did you feel any differently? Is there any that you're putting on your TBR because of this review? Please leave me a comment. I'd love to read and respond and get a community going and find other members of the community as well. So if you have a booktube, please drop me a link below. I'll happily give you a follow, subscribe, watch your videos, because I absolutely love hearing other people's opinions on books. And also, if you feel like following me, subscribing, dropping a like, this channel really is just getting started. This is literally my first video, and I am really hoping to build it up to something that I can be really proud of. I'm going to be getting my background sorted upstairs. I'm thinking cozy vibes, blankets, pictures, candles. That's what I'm thinking. And I'm hopefully going to be getting myself a little bit more confident talking about books on camera. So if this is a little bit rare, I'm so sorry. Anyway, I will stop rambling on now. So thank you so much for reading along with me, staying with me, and I'll see you in the next chapter.